I can see why Mike McMahon wanted to keep this one under wraps from the press and the media. He said that this was, in his opinion, the ultimate magnum opus of Star Trek Lower Decks. After witnessing an episode as well crafted and as well executed as the one that they delivered me this morning, I have to tend to agree. Last week we found out that the mystery vessel floating around was actually Nick Locarno of Alpha Squadron. It is really cool to see that Mike has finally decided to put a direct plot tie-in from Next Generation's Lower Decks to the new Lower Decks adult comedy. This results in a finale that is filled to the brim with lower deckers of all species coming together, joining the cult church of Locarno, and then hunting down Mariner to the ends of hell. If you haven't seen the episode, run off and watch it right now, and then feel free to come back afterwards. Episode 10, Old Friends, New Planets. This one starts off very strong with us getting that Starfleet Academy scene of Mariner that I was desperately asking for in my last review, with her going up and approaching Alpha Squadron. Very well may be one of the greatest scenes produced by this show in its existence. All the original actors were there voicing their characters, with exciting appearances from Will Wheaton and Shannon Phil as Sito Jaxa, and if you pay close enough attention, you could see the famous Academy groundskeeper Boothby that appears in a handful of episodes from the 90s. Getting to see Josh before his death, and then also getting to see Wesley with his reluctance about the whole entire maneuver, is actually so cryptic and very, very cool to see in this format. In the original episode, Sito seems like such a follower, and it's really nice to see this dynamic with her seeming like a role model to the fangirling Mariner. This is such a 10 out of 10 scene, and I'm fully convinced that it has definitely enriched the Star Trek universe. Very ignorant to whether there is an actual classification for the ship that Mariner was using to evade Locarno in the episode. If there is one, it's got to either be a Picard ship or a Star Trek Online ship. There was a ship that appeared in Picard that was a Gagarin class of the same name, the USS Pissarro. These two ships are definitely of different appearances, and they have explicitly different serial numbers, completely different ships. I don't know what the ship class is. If you know, please leave it down in the comment. It would very much help me out. Nick reminds me so much of the xenophobic madman antagonist from Enterprise, John Frederick Paxton, who was the leader of Terra Prime. By themselves amassed a massive following and resources to pick a fight with Starfleet. So can we just talk about how well Nick's character was? A delusional egomaniac who created this movement because he can't take responsibility for his own failings and wants to blame it on his Starfleet superiors. The scene where Mariner finally tries to make it settle into Locarno that he was responsible for Josh's death was also very impactful for such a silly adult cartoon. Nick had the black market Ferengi Genesis device, which confirms my question that I had in an earlier review when it first appeared in the season as to how prominent this technology was in this period of time. It seems like Genesis technology is one of the many very dangerous technologies that Ferengi are willing to barter and market for the right amount of latinum. In Deep Space Nine, we did learn from Quark and his cousin that there is a sect of Ferengi that enjoy selling weapons and killing millions of people. It doesn't really surprise me that the Genesis device and its technology would eventually create some demand in some maniacal markets out there for the Ferengi. Beckett's little defiance that she did with Nick before she kicked the Genesis device over and ran off with it was such an S-tier scene. I feel like when everything's said and done and this series is over, that's going to be a very popular scene that's going to be clipped. One of my favorite aspects of Nick Locarno's plan and his whole Starburst coalition was the Trinar shield, and it's because I'm biased. I love the Binars so much. Every time I see them now in Lower Decks, it's really cool. Called the Trinar shield because it's controlled by 3 Binars. It's a great explanation that the Binars are the ones to actually create the Trinar shield for him, because they are technologically advanced and have technology that the Federation doesn't even understand, as shown in their debut episode in the TNG when they augmented the holodeck beyond Picard and Riker's understanding. So many jokes and bits from this season that also come full circle, and it's really satisfying to see with Livik and Rutherford's feud and relationship being settled in the holodeck with another round of Mark Twain jokes. I love that bit. I don't know if I'm ever going to get tired of it. I think it's really funny. My only real complaint in this finale is the Orion subplot, because I think it's a common criticism, if you've seen my previous reviews, how I'm dissatisfied with our introduction to the home planet of Orion and Tendy's relationship with her family and how they choose to show Orion society. I think it's very shallow. When I learned that the ship that they traded Tendy's soul for wasn't even functional and they just used it to ram into the shield, I thought that that was a little bit silly and stupid. Couldn't you have used any other large space mass, like an asteroid or something that was similarly shaped to the warship? Or maybe you could have gone out to some abandoned battlegrounds and found a large ship that was non-functional. We did not have to sell Tendy for a non-functional ship that we were just going to be used as a large projectile. Finally get back to Orion, I'm thinking, hey, are we gonna get that enriching Orion content that I want? No, we're just gonna get this lifeless little scene where they pit Miggly Moo against this really large Orion woman, and I guess at most this might be a little bit of an Easter egg to bred in circuses from the TOS. Gladiatorial matches are such an overused archetype that I think that that's probably a stretch. However, there was that final scene in the last seconds of the episode that indicated that the Orions and Tendy's subplot, where she's going back to her home planet, is going to play a huge role at the beginning of next season. So maybe I'll finally get that Orion content that I'm thirsting for in the depth that I want from their culture, and not the 3 things that we learned about them from Enterprise and TOS that's just spammed over and over again. I really enjoyed Nick Locarno's whole entire story this episode and his ending. I really like how he didn't redeem himself and that the Genesis device blew up in his face, and he actually went as far as to shoot Mariner. It is a common Trek trope where a character is kind of placed in front of somebody at gunpoint, and you get to see whether they're willing to shoot them with a phaser or not, because the character is always teleported with the transporter at the very last moment, which is what happened to Mariner. The fact that the wormhole anomaly that was left over looked like the Starburst maneuver was very poetic. I enjoyed that. That was thoughtful. And them making him into this new Locarno planet that is now going to be used as a place to put refugees, that is such a nice, wholesome ending that warms the heart for an otherwise irredeemable weirdo of a character. At around 6 minutes, there was this race that I could not identify. At first, my initial guess was that they were the Wadi. You guys can tell me what alien race appeared at around 6 minutes when they were going through all of the lower decker species, because there were Tamarians, there were the Romulans, there were Andorians, there was this 4th one that I couldn't identify. All in all, I'm going to give this episode a 8.5 out of 10. I give it the score because of how much enjoyment that I personally derived from it. I think that it was a great finisher to meld this season together, and how it really did bring back a lot of individual details and jokes and bits, like the Genesis device and also the Mark Twain holodeck bit. And I think that that Lower Decks TNG tie-in was very well done. It has got to be enriching the Star Trek canon with that scene between Mariner and Ensign Sito. And I really did enjoy Nick Locarno. He's a great antagonist of the season finale. I'm going to give the overall season at least a 7. It is definitely above average, but there were parts of the season where I felt like it missed the mark. We didn't get a good enough introduction to Orion. There was a little bit too much filler. Then you missed the opportunity by not giving me a Brunt cameo in the Ferenginar episode. Mike McMahon, I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you for that one, bro. Thanks so much for watching another one of my Star Trek reviews. If you enjoyed the content, I'd be very flattered if you were to subscribe. If you have anything that you'd like to share with me, please leave a comment down below. They're my favorite thing about the platform. If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate if you slapped a like on it. And with all that being said, y'all have a good rest of your week. Live long and prosper. And then also, Skull, baby, Skull!